The silence was the worst part. Kang Day stood in the observation deck of the eternal dawn, staring out at the endless black between stars. 3 months had passed since he woke up. 3 months since he discovered that everyone else was dead. 50,000 people. Gone. He pressed his hand against the cold glass and closed his eyes. The ship's recycled air hummed through the vents above him. It was the only sound he heard anymore, besides his own breathing and the beating of his heart. Day was 32 years old. He had been a maintenance engineer on Earth, working long shifts in the cramped engine rooms of orbital stations. When the colony program opened, he signed up without thinking twice. No family to say goodbye to. No friends who would miss him. Just a chance to start fresh somewhere new, somewhere far away from the life that had never quite felt like his own. Now he wished he had stayed. The journey to New Terra was supposed to take 40 years in cryosleep. Everyone would wake up together, young and ready to build a new world. But something went wrong. The main cryogenic systems failed during the 18th year. A cascade error, the computer log said. One system failed, then another, like dominoes falling in the dark. Everyone died in their sleep. Peaceful, the medical records claimed. They never knew what happened. Everyone except Day. His pod had been pulled out for maintenance 2 days before the failure. A routine check because of a faulty temperature sensor. The technicians put him in a separate maintenance bay with its own backup systems. Those systems kept working when everything else died. He was lucky. He hated that word now. Day walked through the empty corridors of the ship. His footsteps echoed against the metal walls. He had stopped going to the cryogenic chambers weeks ago. Seeing all those frozen faces, preserved forever in their final sleep, made something break inside him each time. He knew some of them. Minji, the botanist who laughed too loud. Huang, the pilot who always had a story to tell. Young Ho, the doctor who said Day worried too much. All of them were still there, frozen in time, waiting for a morning that would never come. The hydroponics bay was the only place that still felt alive. Plants didn't care that everyone was dead. They just kept growing under the artificial lights, green and stubborn. Day spent hours there, tending to the tomatoes and lettuce, talking to them like they could hear him. Another day, he said to a tomato plant, checking its leaves for disease. Still here, still breathing. The plant didn't answer. Nothing ever did except for the ship's computer. Good morning, Engineer Kang, the AI said when he entered the command center. Its voice was female, calm, and slightly distorted from damage it suffered during the cascade failure. Morning, Bomb, Day replied, settling into the pilot's chair. He had named the AI after his sister, who died when he was 12. It made the loneliness a little easier to bear. System status remains stable, Bomb reported. Life support at 73% efficiency. Food supplies sufficient for 11.2 years at current consumption. Water recycling optimal. Any change in our course? Negative. We continue to drift at 0.03 light speed. Current trajectory will take us past the Kepler 442 system in approximately 97 years. 97 years. Day would be long dead by then. This ship would be his tomb, just like it was for everyone else. He spent the morning running diagnostics on the communication systems. He did this every day, hoping that somehow, some way, he could send a message back to Earth. But the long-range transmitter was damaged beyond his ability to repair. He was an engineer, not a miracle worker. Around what he decided was noon, Day ate lunch in the mess hall. Rehydrated rice and vegetables from the hydroponics bay. He sat at one of the tables, surrounded by hundreds of empty chairs, and chewed slowly. He used to eat quickly, always rushing to the next task. Now he had nothing but time. After lunch, he wandered. That's what he did most days. He walked through the residential sections, past the schoolrooms that would have taught the colony's children, through the recreation areas where people would have gathered to play games and watch movies. All of it empty, all of it silent. He found himself in the cargo bay, standing before the crates of supplies meant for New Terra, tools and seeds, building materials and medical equipment. Everything needed to start a civilization, all of it useless now. Day sat down on a crate and put his head in his hands. Some days were harder than others. Some days he thought about opening an airlock and walking out into space. It would be quick, painless, an end to the loneliness that ate at him like acid. But he couldn't do it. Something stubborn in him refused to give up. Maybe it was pride, maybe it was fear. Maybe it was just the animal instinct to survive no matter how pointless survival seemed. "You're being dramatic again," he said aloud, his voice echoing in the vast space. "Get up. Do something useful." He forced himself to stand and return to the command center. There was always work to do. The ship might be a coffin, but it was his coffin, and he would keep it running as long as he could. Day was reviewing power consumption logs when something strange happened. "Alert," Bomb said suddenly, detecting unusual energy signature. He sat up straight. "What kind of signature?" "Unknown. Electromagnetic pattern inconsistent with natural phenomena. Source bearing 273 Mark 15. Distance approximately 400,000 kilometers and closing." Day's heart started beating faster. "Closing? Something's moving toward us?" "Affirmative. Velocity suggests powered flight. Estimated time to intercept, 17 minutes. His hands trembled as he pulled up the sensor display. There on the screen was a contact. Something big. Something that wasn't supposed to be there. For 3 months, Day had been alone. For 3 months, he had seen nothing but empty space and distant stars. Now something was coming toward him, and he didn't know if he should be terrified or grateful. "Bomb, can you identify it?" "Negative. Configuration does not match any known human vessel. Mass suggests object is significantly larger than this ship. Attempting to establish communication protocols." Day stood up and walked to the observation window. At first he saw nothing, just the usual darkness and the cold light of stars. Then gradually something blocked out those stars. It was huge, bigger than anything humans had ever built. The shape was wrong, too organic, like it had been grown instead of constructed. Lights flickered across its surface, patterns that hurt his eyes to watch. "Multiple energy spikes detected," Bomb warned. "Unknown vessel is scanning us. Hull integrity fields activating." The lights in the command center flickered. Day grabbed the edge of the console to steady himself. The entire ship shuddered as if caught in a giant's hand. "What's happening?" he shouted. "Tractor beam engaged. We are being pulled toward the unknown vessel. I cannot break free." Day watched through the window as the alien ship grew larger and larger, filling his entire field of vision. An opening appeared in its side, a massive bay that glowed with strange blue light. The Eternal Dawn was pulled inside like a toy. "Bomb, seal all airlocks. Lock down everything." "Complying. Engineer Kang, what are your orders?" Day realized he was shaking. Fear and excitement and disbelief all mixed together in his chest. After 3 months of being the last human alive, after 3 months of crushing loneliness, something had found him. He didn't know if they were rescuers or killers. He didn't know if he was about to die or if his life was about to change forever. "I don't know," he whispered. The lights went out. Emergency systems kicked in, bathing everything in red. Day heard sounds he couldn't identify. Metal against metal, then something else. Footsteps? Too many legs, the rhythm all wrong, his vision blurred. The air felt strange, heavy with something that made his head spin. Day tried to reach for the emergency breathing mask, but his arms wouldn't obey. He fell to his knees, the red emergency light spinning above him. The last thing he saw before darkness took him was a figure standing in the doorway of the command center. Tall, impossibly tall, with too many limbs and eyes that glowed like captured stars. Then nothing. Day woke up breathing. That was the first surprise. He had expected to die. Instead, his chest rose and fell with steady rhythm, pulling in air that tasted strange but clean. Sweet, almost, like flowers he couldn't name. The second surprise was that he could move. His fingers twitched, then his hands, then his arms. He sat up slowly, his head spinning with vertigo. He was lying on something soft. Not a bed exactly, but a surface that adjusted to his weight, warm and slightly giving. The room around him was enormous, the ceiling so high it disappeared into shadow. Walls curved in impossible ways, covered with patterns that seemed to shift when he looked directly at them. Everything glowed. Not with harsh light, but with a soft luminescence that came from the walls themselves. Blues and greens and colors he didn't have names for, all pulsing gently like a heartbeat. "Where am I?" he whispered. His voice sounded tiny in the vast space. Day stood up on shaky legs. He was still wearing his ship uniform, the gray jumpsuit with the colony mission patch on his shoulder. Nothing hurt. He checked himself quickly, running his hands over his arms and chest. No injuries, no pain. Whatever had knocked him out hadn't harmed him. He took a step forward and nearly fell. The floor wasn't quite solid. It had some give to it, like walking on thick moss. Each step left a faint impression that slowly filled back in. The room had no obvious door, just smooth walls that curved into each other. But as Day approached one wall, a section of it simply melted away, revealing a corridor beyond. He hesitated. Every instinct told him to be careful, to wait, to understand before acting. But 3 months of isolation had taught him something. Waiting alone was its own kind of death. Day stepped through the opening. The corridor was even stranger than the room. It twisted in ways that made his head hurt, going up and down simultaneously, or at least that's how it felt. The walls were transparent in places, showing glimpses of other corridors, other rooms, other spaces that seemed to exist beside this one without quite touching. He walked for what felt like hours but might have been minutes. Time felt strange here. His watch had stopped working, the display frozen at the moment he was captured. Then he heard something. A sound like wind chimes mixed with clicking, rhythmic and purposeful. Voices, he realized. Multiple voices speaking a language that sounded like music and machinery combined. Day turned a corner and stopped dead. They were waiting for him. There were 5 of them, standing in a semicircle in a chamber 3 times the size of the Eternal Dawn's command center. They were tall, at least 7 feet, with bodies that combined insect and human features in ways that shouldn't work but somehow did. Their skin, if it was skin, looked like polished shell. It gleamed with iridescent colors that shifted as they moved. Each had 4 arms, 2 that looked almost human and 2 that were more like the limbs of a praying mantis folded against their bodies. Their faces were angular, with large eyes that caught and held light like mirrors. But despite how alien they looked, there was something in their posture, in the way they stood and watched him, that seemed curious rather than hostile. One of them stepped forward. This one was smaller than the others, its shell more blue than green. It raised one very human-looking hand in what might have been a gesture of greeting. Then it spoke, and Day understood. Not the sounds it made. Those were still alien, still musical and strange. But meaning flowed into his mind, clear as if spoken in his own language. Do not fear. You are safe. Day's mouth fell open. How? How are you doing that? The being tilted its head, a gesture that seemed almost human. Translation field. It reads neural patterns and facilitates understanding. I am Hana. I am assigned to help you adjust. Adjust to what? Where am I? What do you want with me? Hana made a clicking sound that might have been sympathy. You are aboard the Nest of Eternal Stars, a vessel of the Velhari Collective. We brought you here because you possess something we need. I don't understand. You will. But first the Queen wishes to meet you. Before Day could ask what Queen, the other 4 beings parted, creating a path through the chamber. At the far end, another opening had appeared. Beyond it, Day could see a space even larger than this one, filled with light that made his eyes water. Please, Hana said, gesturing toward the opening. It is a great honor to be summoned by Queen Liss. Day wanted to refuse. He wanted to demand answers, to understand what was happening before walking into the unknown. But what choice did he have? He was alone on an alien ship, surrounded by beings he didn't understand. Cooperation seemed like the only path forward. He walked through the opening. The chamber beyond was vast enough to contain a small city. The ceiling arced overhead like the dome of a cathedral, covered with something that looked like living stars. Below, the floor was transparent, showing layers upon layers of the ship extending in all directions. Hundreds of Velhari moved through those spaces, busy with tasks Day couldn't begin to comprehend. And at the center of it all, seated on a platform that grew from the floor itself, was the Queen. She was larger than the others, at least 8 feet tall even seated. Her shell was silver blue, polished to a mirror shine and marked with patterns that seemed to move across her surface. She had 6 arms instead of 4, and her eyes, larger than the others, glowed with an internal light. But what struck Day most was the intelligence in those eyes. They watched him approach with an intensity that made him feel naked, exposed as if she could see through his skin to the thoughts beneath. Queen Liss rose as he came near. The movement was fluid, graceful despite her size. She descended from her platform and approached him directly, stopping just a few feet away. When she spoke, her voice filled his mind like thunder. Kang Day, last of your vessel, last of your people. We have searched for one such as you for many cycles. Day found his voice. Why? What do you want from me? To understand that, you must first understand us. The Queen gestured, and the air between them shimmered. Images appeared, projected somehow directly into his vision. He saw the Velhari, millions of them, spread across multiple worlds. He saw their technology, advanced beyond anything humanity had dreamed. He saw their art, their culture, their collective way of thinking that bound them together like cells in a single organism. Then he saw them dying. The images showed Velhari growing sick, their shells cracking, their bodies failing. He saw birthing chambers where young were born twisted and wrong. He saw worlds where the population had dropped to mere thousands. We are dying, QueenHFY said simply. A genetic plague introduced by enemies we defeated generations ago. They are extinct, but their weapon endures. We cannot reproduce successfully. Each generation is smaller than the last, weaker than the last. In 3 more generations, the Velhari will cease to exist. Day stared at the images, horror and pity mixing in his chest. I'm sorry, but I don't understand what this has to do with me. Your species fascinates us. You are not strong, not physically. Your technology is primitive. Your lifespans are brief. But you survive. You adapt. You overcome. We have studied your broadcasts, your history, your biology. The Queen stepped closer. Day had to tilt his head back to meet her eyes. You possess genetic diversity we lost millennia ago. More importantly, you possess something in your psychological structure, your neural patterns that resonates with our own. We believe a union between our species might save us both. A union? Day's heart started beating faster. What kind of union? Genetic, cultural, a blending of what we are. We wish to create offspring that carry both Velhari and human traits, hybrids that might be immune to the plague that kills us. The Queen extended one hand toward him. Her fingers were long and delicate despite her size. But such a union requires more than biology. It requires understanding, connection, partnership. That is why we searched for you. Our sensors detected something unique in your neural signature when we scanned your vessel. You are compatible with our bonding process in ways other humans would not be. Day took a step back, his mind reeling. You want me to have children with you? With our species, yes. With me specifically. QueenHFY lowered her hand. I am the Queen. Any offspring would be of the highest genetic quality, and you would be bonded to me, made my partner, my consort, my equal in all ways that matter. This is insane. This is survival, for both of us. The Queen's voice softened somehow, became less overwhelming. You are alone, Kangday. The last of your ship. Perhaps the last human who will ever drift through this region of space. Return to your vessel and you will die alone in the dark. Or join with us. Become something new. Give your species a legacy beyond extinction. Day's legs felt weak. He sat down right there on the strange floor, not caring how it looked. His mind raced with 1,000 thoughts at once. 3 months ago, he had been ready to die. He had accepted that his life would end in silence, alone among the frozen dead. Now he was being offered something impossible. A chance to matter. A chance to create life instead of mourning death. But the cost seemed too high. To stop being human. To become something else. To bond with this alien queen and produce children that would be neither human nor Velhari. I need time, he said finally. I need to think. QueenHFY inclined her head. You will have it. Hana will show you to your quarters. You may explore freely. Learn about us. When you are ready to Anna. The quarters Hana showed him were larger than his entire apartment back on Earth. The walls changed color based on his mood. Or so Hana explained. Right now they glowed a soft amber, which apparently meant uncertainty. A bed, if that's what it was, grew from the floor near one wall. It looked like a cocoon made of the same material as everything else, comfortable and strange. You can request anything you need, Hana told him. Food, entertainment, information. Simply speak your desire and the ship will provide if it is able. The ship is alive? Day asked, touching one wall. It felt warm under his palm and he could swear he felt something like a pulse. Not alive in the way you mean, but not dead either. The nest of eternal stars is a bioconstruct, grown from living materials enhanced with technology. It responds to neural commands from Velhari crew members. Hana paused. And now from you. The translation field we placed in your mind allows basic ship interaction. Day pulled his hand back quickly. You put something in my mind. A temporary nanoscale device. It will dissolve naturally in approximately 60 days if you choose not to stay. It causes no harm. Hana tilted her head in that almost human gesture. You seem frightened. Wouldn't you be? I wake up on an alien ship told that your queen wants to bond with me and create hybrid children. This is a lot to process. Hana moved to a section of wall that suddenly became transparent, showing the void of space beyond. Stars streaked past in the distance, though the ship must have been traveling faster than light for them to move like that. I understand this is overwhelming, she said. Perhaps it would help to know more about us, about why this matters so much. Day sat on the edge of the strange bed. Tell me. Hana was silent for a moment, then began to speak. Her voice, transmitted directly into his mind, was gentle. The Velhari have existed for 12,000 of your years. We were not always as you see us now. Once we were small creatures living in colonies beneath the ground of our homeworld. Over millennia we evolved intelligence, technology, and the ability to join our minds together. Images appeared in the air between them, projected by some technology Day couldn't see. He watched as primitive Velhari, looking more insect than humanoid, built their first tools, then their first cities, then their first ships. Our collective consciousness is our greatest strength, Hana continued. When Velhari come together, we can share thoughts, experiences, memories. We become greater than the sum of our parts. This allowed us to advance rapidly, to solve problems no individual could solve alone. But there's a cost, Day said, beginning to understand. Yes, in becoming so unified, we lost something. Individuality. The spark of self that makes each being unique. We are efficient, but we lack creativity, innovation, the ability to see problems from unexpected angles. The images shifted, showing Velhari scientists working in laboratories. They moved in perfect synchronization, like dancers performing a rehearsed routine. Then came the plague. Our enemies, a species called the Makran, created a genetic weapon. It targeted the very things that made us Velhari, corrupting our DNA, making each generation less viable than the last. We defeated the Makran, but the damage was done. Hana turned to face him fully. We have tried everything. Our best scientists have worked for generations to find a cure, but we are limited by our own nature. We think too similarly. We need something different, something wild and unpredictable. Humans, Day said. Yes, your species may be primitive by our standards, but you are survivors. You adapt to anything. You thrive in chaos. You think in ways that would never occur to us. Hana gestured at him. And you, Kang Day, you survived when 50,000 others died. That speaks to something in your nature and your genes that we desperately need. Day stood and paced the room. His mind was spinning with possibilities and fears, but why bonding? Why not just take some of my DNA and mix it with yours in a laboratory? We tried that approach with other species, Hana admitted. The results were not viable. Life is more than just genetic code. It requires connection, understanding, shared purpose. The bonding process ensures that human and Velhari traits merge properly, guided by neural connection between partners. You make it sound scientific, clinical. It is scientific, but it is also profound. The bonding process creates a link between minds. You and QueenHFY would share thoughts, emotions, experiences. You would understand each other in ways impossible for unbonded beings. Day felt a chill run through him. That sounds terrifying. It can be, but it can also be beautiful. To never be truly alone again. To have someone who understands you completely. Hana's voice grew softer. You have been alone for so long, Kang Day. 3 months in silence. We saw your logs, your video messages to people who will never hear them. We know what isolation has done to you. He wanted to be angry at this invasion of privacy, but he couldn't manage it. She was right. The loneliness had been crushing him slowly, day by day. What would happen to me if I agreed? You would undergo medical procedures to prepare your body for bonding, enhancements to allow you to survive in Velhari environments, to interface with our technology, then the bonding ceremony itself, where your neural patterns would be linked with the Queen's. And after, you would be her consort, her partner. You would help guide the creation of the first hybrid generation. You would become part of Velhari society, though you would retain your humanity, your individual identity. Dai walked to the transparent wall and stared out at the stars. They looked different from this alien ship. Colder somehow, more distant. Can I see more of the ship? Meet more of your people? Of course. That is why I am here. Over the following days, Hana became his guide to this impossible new world. She showed him the breeding chambers, where Velhari young were grown in crystalline pods. Most of the pods were empty now, a testament to the species' decline. The few young that were being raised showed signs of the genetic plague: malformed limbs, weak shells, eyes that didn't focus properly. She showed him the collective chambers, where hundreds of Velhari could link their minds together to solve complex problems. Day watched as they worked in perfect harmony, sharing information faster than any computer network. But Hana pointed out the limitations, how they all approach problems from similar angles, how true innovation had become nearly impossible. She showed him the memorial gardens, where they honored the millions who had died from the plague. Holographic representations of individuals, frozen in moments of joy or contemplation, filled vast halls. So many dead, so many lost. This is what we face, Hana said quietly. Extinction. Not soon, but inevitable unless something changes. Day met other Velhari, Taman, a scientist who would oversee the genetic procedures if Day agreed. He was enthusiastic, almost childlike in his excitement about the possibilities. Imagine it, Taman said, his 4 arms gesturing wildly. Beings with Velhari strength and human creativity. With our longevity and your adaptability, they would be magnificent. Day also met General Saran, a military leader who made his opposition clear from the first moment. You are weak, Saran said bluntly, his shell dark gray and scarred. Your species has barely left its homeworld. You have no great achievements, no mighty empire, yet we are supposed to dilute our noble bloodline with yours? Soren, Hana warned. No, let him speak, Dai said. He understood this kind of prejudice. He had seen it among humans often enough. Fear of the different disguised as pride. If it were my choice, Soren continued, we would face extinction with dignity, rather than create abominations. But the Queen has decided and I obey. Know this, human, many of us feel as I do. Tread carefully. After Soren left, Dai turned to Hana. He wants to kill me. He will not. He obeys the Queen absolutely, even when he disagrees with her choices. But you are right to be cautious. Change frightens many of us. That night, alone in his quarters, Day tried to process everything he had learned. The Velhari were dying. They needed him or someone like him to survive. But more than that, he realized he needed them too, not just to escape loneliness, but to matter, to leave something behind that would outlast him. He thought about his life on Earth, the small apartment, the job that paid bills but never satisfied, the nights spent alone watching entertainment feeds and wondering why he felt so empty inside. He thought about the eternal dawn, filled with frozen corpses. All those people who had died dreaming of a fresh start. What if this was his fresh start? What if this impossible situation was the universe giving him a second chance? Ship, he said aloud. Can you show me Queen Liss? The wall shimmered and an image appeared. The Queen in her throne room, alone now. She stood before a holographic display, studying what looked like genetic sequences. Even from this projection, Day could see the weight she carried, the responsibility for an entire species resting on her shoulders. She looked lonely. Powerful, yes. Majestic and strange and alien, but also lonely. Day understood loneliness. Ship, can you send her a message? Affirmative, he took a breath. Tell her I want to speak with her again. Tomorrow. Tell her I'm still deciding, but I have questions. Message sent. The image of the Queen paused. She turned, looking directly at whatever camera or sensor was recording her. For a moment, Day could swear those glowing eyes looked right at him, across the distance of the ship. The Queen's private chamber was nothing like Day expected. Instead of the grand throne room, Hana led him to a space that felt almost intimate. The walls were transparent on all sides, showing the cosmos flowing past. In the center was a garden of sorts filled with plants that glowed softly in the darkness. Some were clearly from Velhari worlds, strange and geometric. Others looked almost Earth-like, though Day couldn't identify the species. Queen Liss stood among the plants, her back to him. She was tending to a flower that pulsed with blue light, her movements surprisingly gentle for such a large being. Thank you for coming, she said without turning around. Her voice in his mind was softer than before, less overwhelming. Thank you for seeing me, Day replied. The Queen set down her gardening tool and turned to face him. This close, without the ceremony of the throne room, she seemed different. Still majestic, still alien, but also somehow more real. I collect plants from worlds we visit, she said, gesturing at the garden. A strange hobby for a queen, perhaps, but I find it calming to nurture living things when I spend so much time managing death and decline. Day walked closer, studying the alien vegetation. They're beautiful. Each one has a story. This flower, she touched the blue one, grows on the edge of volcanoes on Velhari Prime. It thrives in heat that would kill most life. Resilient. Adaptable. She looked at him. Like humans. You asked to speak with me. What questions do you have? Day had spent half the night preparing what to say, but now the words felt inadequate. If I agree to this, if I bond with you and we create these hybrid children, what happens to me? To who I am? You fear losing yourself, wouldn't you? The queen moved to a bench carved from the same living material as the ship and sat down. She gestured for Day to join her. After a moment's hesitation, he did. The bonding process is difficult to explain to one who has never experienced it, she began. Imagine you have lived your entire life seeing only in shades of gray. Then suddenly, someone gives you the ability to see color. You have not lost your ability to see gray, but your perception has expanded. You are still yourself, but you are also more. That doesn't really answer my question. A sound came from the queen, something between a hum and a laugh. No, I suppose it does not. Let me be more direct. The bonding will create a neural link between us. We will be able to share thoughts, emotions, and memories when we choose to. But you will remain an individual. Your human mind, your human personality, your human soul, if you believe in such things, these will all remain intact. But I'll be changed. Yes, as will I. The queen extended one of her hands, palm up. I have never bonded before. It is considered the highest honor, reserved only for the queens chosen. But it is also terrifying for me to open my mind to another, to share the burden of my memories and responsibilities, to let someone see all that I am, weaknesses and all. Day stared at her hand. In that moment, he understood something profound. She wasn't just asking him to save her species. She was asking him to be her partner, to share a burden she had carried alone for who knows how long. How old are you? He asked suddenly. By your reckoning, nearly 300 years. I have been queen for 147. Day felt dizzy. 300 years of memories, of experiences, of weight. And she was willing to share all of that with him, a human who had barely lived 3 decades. Why me? He asked quietly. Surely there are other humans who would be better suited. Smarter, stronger, more important. The neural scan does not lie, the queen replied. Your brain patterns, your genetic markers, they resonate with Velhari frequencies in ways we have never seen before. But that is not why I chose you specifically. Then why? The queen was silent for a long moment. When she spoke again, her voice was barely a whisper in his mind. Because you understand loneliness. You have felt the weight of responsibility for lives you could not save. You have stood alone in the dark and chosen to continue living despite the pain. These are things I understand too deeply. She turned to look at him directly, her glowing eyes meeting his. I am surrounded by millions of my people. Kangde. We are linked by our collective consciousness, never truly alone. Yet I am the loneliest being in the entire collective. I carry decisions that affect billions. I bear the guilt of every life lost to the plague. I am responsible for finding a solution where none seems to exist, and I cannot share this burden with anyone because no one else is bonded to me. Her voice grew stronger. When our sensors detected your ship, when we scanned you and found you compatible, I felt something I have not felt in decades. Hope. Not just hope for my species, but hope for myself. A chance to no longer be alone in my own mind. Day felt something crack inside his chest. All this time he had thought of this as a choice between survival and humanity. He hadn't considered that the queen might need him as much as he needed her. I'm afraid, he admitted. Afraid of losing myself. Afraid of failing. Afraid this won't work and I'll have given up everything for nothing. Fear is wise. Fear keeps us alive. The queen's hand was still extended between them. But fear can also trap us. Sometimes we must risk everything to gain something worth having. Day looked down at her alien hand. 4 fingers instead of 5. Skin like polished shell. So different from his own. Yet the gesture was universal. An offering. A request. A beginning. He thought about the eternal dawn, silent and cold. He thought about dying alone among the stars. He thought about a future where humanity and Velhari both faded into extinction, leaving the galaxy a little emptier. Then he thought about another future. One where children played who were neither human nor Velhari but something new. A future where two dying species found a way to live on together. Slowly, Day reached out and placed his hand in hers. The Queen's fingers closed gently around his. Her shell was warm, smoother than he expected. "I'll do it," he said. "I'll bond with you." The Queen's eyes brightened, literally growing more luminous. "You understand what this means? The procedures, the changes, the commitment?" "No," Day admitted with a small laugh. "I don't understand most of it. But I understand enough. You need me. I need you. And maybe together we can build something neither of us could build alone. Then we must begin preparations. Taman will oversee your medical enhancements. They will take several days. The bonding ceremony itself will require both of us to be in peak condition. What happens during the ceremony?" The Queen stood, pulling him gently to his feet. "We will be placed in a neural chamber. Our minds will be opened to each other completely. Every memory, every thought, every emotion will be shared. It is intense. Some have described it as dying and being reborn simultaneously. That sounds terrible. It is. And it is also the most profound experience a Velhari can have." She led him toward the garden's exit. "But you will not face it alone. I will be there with you every moment." Over the next week, Day's life became a blur of medical procedures. Taman and his team worked on him for hours each day, introducing nanomachines into his bloodstream that would strengthen his body and allow him to interface with Velhari technology. They enhanced his immune system, reinforced his bones, and altered his neural structure to accept the bonding. The changes hurt, not the searing pain of injury, but a deep ache in his bones and head, as if his body was fighting and accepting the modifications simultaneously. "You are doing remarkably well," Taman said during one session, studying holographic displays of Day's internal systems. "Most subjects would have rejected half these enhancements by now. Your adaptability is truly impressive." "Subjects?" Day asked groggily. "You've done this before?" "With volunteers from other species, yes. None were compatible enough for bonding, but we learned much. You, however, are responding better than any previous attempt." Between the medical sessions, Day spent time with Queen Liss. They walked through the ship together, her showing him the wonders of Velhari civilization. They talked about everything: human history and Velhari culture, their fears and hopes, the small details of daily life that made them individuals despite their vastly different origins. He learned that she loved music, but found human compositions chaotic and untethered. She learned that he had always felt like an outsider among his own people, never quite fitting in anywhere. "Perhaps that is why you are perfect for this," she said during one of their walks. "You were always meant to be a bridge between worlds." They also planned for the future. If the bonding succeeded, if hybrid children were born healthy, what then? How would they raise beings who were neither human nor Velhari? What culture would they teach them? "They will create their own culture," the Queen decided, "drawing from both of us but making something entirely new. That is the beauty of this experiment. And if it fails?" Day asked. "Then we will have tried, and that is more than my species has had in generations. Hope is not about certainty, Kang Day. It is about possibility." Finally, the day of the bonding ceremony arrived. Day stood in his quarters, staring at his reflection in a polished section of wall. He looked different now. His eyes had a faint luminescence, a side effect of the enhancements. His skin seemed healthier, his muscles more defined. He was still human, still Kang Day, but also something more. Hana came to escort him to the ceremony chamber. "Are you ready?" she asked. "No, bye." The bonding hit Day like a wave of fire and ice simultaneously. One moment he was lying in the pod, staring at soft lights above him. The next moment he was everywhere and nowhere, his sense of self dissolving like salt in water. He felt Queen Liss's presence, vast and ancient, pressing against his consciousness. Not aggressive, not hostile, but so massive that he felt like he might be crushed beneath the weight of her existence. Then her voice, clearer than ever before, echoed through the space where his mind had been. "Do not fight it. Let go. I am here." Day tried to relax, but instinct screamed at him to resist, to protect the boundaries of his own thoughts. This was too much, too fast, too overwhelming. "I am afraid too," Liss's voice came again. "But we face this together." Memories flooded through him. Not his own. Hers. He saw the Velhari homeworld as she had seen it 300 years ago when she was young. Crystal cities that stretched toward purple skies. Millions of her people moving in harmony, their collective consciousness a symphony of shared thought. He felt her coronation, the moment she was chosen as queen. The neural crown placed upon her head, connecting her to every Velhari across dozens of worlds. The sudden weight of their hopes, their fears, their needs, all pressing down on her alone. He experienced her first encounter with the plague, watching children die in the breeding chambers, their shells cracking, their bodies failing. Knowing that she was responsible for finding a solution and having none to offer. Years of failure. Decades of watching her species decline, one generation at a time. The crushing guilt of being unable to save them. The loneliness of command, surrounded by millions yet unable to truly connect with any of them. It was too much. Day felt himself drowning in centuries of pain and responsibility. Then, like a lifeline thrown into dark water, he felt Liss reaching back, searching through his memories, experiencing his life as he had experienced hers. She saw his childhood on Earth, the small apartment he shared with his parents, the sister who died young, leaving a hole in their family that never healed, the slow retreat into himself as he grew older, finding it easier to be alone than to risk connection. She felt his loneliness on the eternal dawn, those 3 months of silence. The daily battle against despair, the moments when he stood at the airlock and considered ending it all, but she also felt something else. His resilience, the stubborn human refusal to give up even when giving up would be easier. The way he kept maintaining the ship, kept tending the garden, kept recording messages even though no one would hear them. "You are stronger than you know," her voice whispered through his thoughts. "So are you," he replied, understanding now that her apparent strength was built on centuries of forcing herself to continue, despite despair. The memories came faster now. His and hers mixing together, creating something new. He felt what it was like to have 4 arms to perceive the world through Velhari senses. She felt what it was like to be human, small and fragile but burning with an intensity her species had forgotten. They shared moments of joy. Her first flight off-world, the terror and exhilaration of seeing her planet from orbit. His first successful repair job, the pride of fixing something complex with his own hands. They shared moments of sorrow. Her watching a friend succumb to the plague, powerless to help. His sitting at his sister's hospital bed, too young to understand death but old enough to know she was leaving. They shared dreams. Her vision of a Velhari future where the plague was defeated and her people thrived again. His dream of belonging somewhere, of mattering to someone, of not being alone. The boundaries between them blurred. Where did Day end and Liss begin? He was himself, but he was also her. She was herself, but she was also him. 2 minds, 2 souls connected so deeply that they could never be truly separate again. Is this what bonding is? He thought, and couldn't tell if the thought was his or hers. This is what bonding is, came the reply from both of them at once. Time had no meaning in this space. They might have been connected for seconds or years. But gradually Day felt himself solidifying again, not returning to who he had been before, but becoming something new. Still Kang Day, but also bonded to Queen Liss in a way that would last until one of them died. The light around him faded. The pod opened. Day sat up slowly, his head spinning. The ceremony chamber looked different now, brighter. He could see patterns in the walls that he hadn't noticed before, electromagnetic fields that painted the air with invisible colors. His enhanced senses, awakened fully by the bonding, showed him the world as the Velhari saw it. Across the chamber, Queen Liss emerged from her pod. She looked the same, yet completely different. Day could feel her presence now, a warmth at the edge of his consciousness. She was there, always there, connected to him. Their eyes met across the distance, and Day felt a rush of emotion from her. Joy, relief, wonder, hope. It mirrored exactly what he was feeling. We did it. Her voice came not out loud, but directly into his mind through their new bond. We did. He replied the same way, marveling at how natural it felt. The thousands of Velhari who had witnessed the ceremony began to make sounds. A chorus of clicks and hums that Day now understood was celebration. Hana stepped forward, her shell shimmering with happiness. The bonding is complete, she announced. Queen Liss and Kang Day are joined. The first step toward our salvation has been taken, but not everyone celebrated. Day felt it through the bond, Liss's awareness of dissent in the crowd. He focused and could sense it too now, pockets of resistance among the observers. General Soren stood among them, his shell dark with disapproval. He will be a problem, Liss thought to him. Let him be, Day thought back. He'll see we're right when the first children are born healthy. I hope you are correct. Over the following days, Day adjusted to his new reality. The bond with Liss was always present, a connection he could feel at the edge of his mind. They could speak to each other across any distance on the ship, sharing thoughts instantly. When they chose to, they could share what they were seeing and feeling, experiencing the world through two sets of senses simultaneously. It was strange and wonderful and occasionally overwhelming. He also had new responsibilities. As the Queen's bonded consort, he was now part of Velhari leadership. The collective looked to him for guidance, expecting him to bring human perspective to their decisions. His first test came during a council meeting. The chamber was filled with high-ranking Velhari, military leaders, scientists, and administrators. They stood in a circle, their minds partially linked in that way the Velhari had of sharing information rapidly. Day stood beside Queen Liss, acutely aware that he was the only human present. "We must discuss the genetic hybridization program," Taman said, projecting holographic data into the center of the circle. "The bonding between Queen Liss and Kang Day has succeeded. We are ready to begin the process of creating hybrid offspring." "And how long will this take?" asked Jiwon, an administrator responsible for resource allocation. "Minimum gestation period will be 8 months. Then we must wait to see if the hybrids are healthy, if they carry immunity to the plague. Years possibly. Years we may not have," General Soren spoke up, his voice harsh. "Every day more of our people fall sick. Every month we lose another breeding chamber to failure. We need solutions now, not experiments that may take decades to prove useful." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the collective. Day felt Liss's frustration through the bond. She had dealt with this argument countless times, the desire for immediate solutions to a problem that had no quick fix. "May I speak?" he thought to her. "Please," she replied. "They need to hear from you." Day stepped forward and the chamber fell silent. All eyes turned to him, this strange human who had bonded with their queen. "General Soran is right," Day said, his voice steady. "You need solutions now, but you also need hope for the future. In my species' history, we faced many crises, plagues, famines, wars that threatened to destroy us. The ones who survived were not those who gave up, because the solution would take too long. They were the ones who planted trees they would never see grow, who worked on problems knowing they might not live to see the answer." He gestured at the holographic data. "These hybrid children are not just about biological immunity. They represent a fusion of two ways of thinking: Velhari efficiency and human creativity, your strength and our adaptability. Even if they do not cure the plague immediately, they will approach problems differently than pure Velhari can. That difference might be what saves you." "Pretty words," Soren growled. "But words do not cure genetic corruption." "No," Day agreed. "Work cures it. Science cures it, and time. The bonding proved that humans and Velhari can merge successfully. Now we build on that success, one step at a time." He could feel Liss supporting him through the bond, lending him strength. "I was the last human on my ship," Day continued, his voice growing softer. "Everyone I knew was dead. I could have given up. But I chose to keep going, even though I had no guarantee of rescue. I kept the ship running. I kept myself alive, and because I did, I was here when you found me." He looked around the chamber, meeting as many eyes as he could. "Your species is wounded but not dead. You still have time, use it. Trust in this process. Trust in your queen who has guided you through darkness before. And trust in the possibility that sometimes the answer comes from